Mm.
Your life purpose is where what you are driven to do meets what the world needs.
Right.
If you're driven to do something and no one wants it, that's not your life purpose. It might be a wonderful hobby, but it's not going to be what you devote your life to.
Willpower is never enough. It may last you a day, it may last you a week, but ultimately it's simply not sustainable, says today's Ask an Expert. Hi, I'm Joshua Carlson, co-founder of Propelo Media, and today I sit down with Jonathan Domsky. He's a serial entrepreneur and he's the founder of Untangled Coaching. He's helped hundreds of business professionals across the country accelerate and master their own personal and professional growth. Today we're going to talk about the 4 ways that you can identify your own passion and your purpose. We're also going to talk about how you can break bad routines and insert good routines into your daily life. And finally, we're going to talk about the 3 tips that successful people master every day. If you like what you hear, please hit the like button down below. It really helps us out. And also, if you have a question for myself or Jonathan, add it in the comments down below. And finally, make sure to subscribe so you're instantly notified when we drop our next video. Now let's hear what Jonathan has to say. Jonathan, thank you so much for coming on our Ask an Expert segment.
It is a pleasure to be here. There's nowhere else I'd rather be, Joshua.
Perfect. So we're going to talk a lot about coaching today, but I wanted to go back to the beginning of where your career first started. You co-founded a wearable children's line called Kidorable, which is just an absolutely adorable name, obviously purposefully chosen. I want to go back to the beginning. And what is the genesis story for this business?
So the story starts the week after I graduated from college.
Okay.
I was on a plane with a one-way ticket to China.
Wow.
And 3 weeks in, it was just me and my backpack and my Lonely Planet guidebook. I didn't know anyone, but 3 weeks in, I was looking to rent a bicycle. And the map that I had was, I guess it was out of date. I just couldn't find it. I asked people on the street. Nobody knew. I walked into an office building. I figured someone who works here might know.
Sure.
A beautiful young woman came up to see if she could help. She had never seen a Westerner before.
Okay.
And she didn't know where I could rent a bike either, but her sister was out of town. She had an extra bicycle. She agreed to rent me hers, to lend me hers. So I thanked her and took her out to dinner. Got together the next couple of
I know where this is going.
7 months later, we were engaged. And after spending a year and a half in China, I came with my bride to Chicago, where I grew up.
Okay.
And we were used to spending all of our time together, and we really liked it. So the genesis of Kidorable is a love story. Neither of us had any background in business or entrepreneurship, but we knew that we wanted to be able to go to China pretty often, stay in touch with family and friends there. We knew that we wanted to spend our time together, and it seemed like it'd be awfully hard to do that if we were each working for different companies and had our 2 weeks of vacation a year. So I worked for a year as an administrative assistant. When my computer skills saved a little bit of money, she went to a local college here and studied English. And then in February of 1997, we went back to China for 3 months. We talked to everybody we knew. We went to a bunch of export trade shows. We had no experience. We had no money. We came back with things that had nothing to do with each other: silks, scarves, pottery, home furnishings. And we also had these kind of fun kids 3D umbrellas. We went to the Women's and Kids Chicago apparel and accessories show. The kids' stuff sold best, so we decided, we're in the kids business. My wife, she's the creative genius behind the company. She's a graduate of the China Academy of Fine Arts, China's premier art school, with a background in interior design. So she started developing our products, and within 6 months, we had founded the niche of fun, practical, unique children's accessories, things that all kids need, but that excite their imaginations and become part of their everyday play.
Okay, so a pretty unique origin story, but I do like the premise that you came back with a bowl of spaghetti, you threw it on the wall and saw what stuck. I am curious, once you've kind of identified, hey, here's the niche, and she obviously had a great expertise from a design standpoint, what was that initial growth strategy coming out of the gates from being a nobody to a business and, a day later kind of thing? How were you looking to actually grow the business?
So we used a strategy that doesn't really exist anymore. This was
Okay.
1997. I was 24 years old. I had no sales background. We had no business background. We just talked to everybody we knew. I'd started reading books. I joined, now it's EO, then
Yeah.
YEO, Young Entrepreneurs Organization, a couple of years later, and just devoured all the entrepreneurial business information that's out there and started applying it to my company. We started with a trade show strategy. We would
Okay.
go to shows around the country.
Sure.
In each place, we would get a handful of customers, and then we would ask them, who's your favorite sales rep? Uh, the average age of sales reps in our industry then was probably 60 or 65. This was not a young person's business to get in your car and go knocking on retailers' doors and
Right.
sell. This is the very beginning of the internet before anyone relied on that to do product research. And we started with sales reps, and within a couple of years, we had sales reps all over the country.
Okay.
And in just a few short years, had up to 2,500 independent retailers.
Okay. Wow, that's tremendous growth. How has the growth strategy evolved to where it's at today? I know you're, at least I believe you're no longer in the day-to-day operations, but
Yeah,
what is the process now looking at growth and marketing?
sure. So I'll tell you a story. I suffer from an abundance of confidence.
Okay.
And I don't have an inner critic. I never doubt myself. One of the core values of all my companies is to believe in the potential of the company, that all problems can be solved.
Sure.
And when we got into 2008, 2009, in the Great Recession, so many of our customers were going out of business. It was heartbreaking. Every week we get a letter that says something like, after 32 years in business, we're closing shop. It was very challenging, and I believe that it's our role to independent retailers. They built our business. We're going to double down. We're going to support them. We're going to protect them from the internet.
Okay.
We're going to find ways to make them successful. And we did our best to do that for 2 or 3 years. First time that I'd ever lost money before.
Mhm.
And it turns out that some problems can't be solved. We couldn't protect the small independent Main Street retailer from the internet. And it took us a few years too long to make that shift. So eventually we made the shift to direct to consumer.
Okay.
And to working with major accounts like Amazon, Macy's, Zulily, places like that. And that was a difficult transition, but that's been the road of our company for the last several years. And surprisingly, the pandemic that has been so has accelerated so many trends. Independent retailers have been going out of business slowly for 30 years, and they've been going out of business quickly for 10 years. And now, oh my gosh, they're it's so hard just to survive. But that shift to online ordering has been a real boon for the company. Sales actually have been up every month since April.
Okay.
As people rely on Amazon.
E-commerce environment, right?
Yeah.
Well, that actually was one of my questions is, now obviously Amazon's a household name, but because your business predated, right, the Amazon wave, I was curious just kind of what you saw. And you've touched on a little bit, but I'm curious if you had any other observations as you saw Amazon continue to become the powerhouse that it is today with your business as you're looking, hey, how do we evolve with this massive wave?
Yeah, years ago, I heard an interview with Bill Ford, CEO of Ford Motor Company,
Yeah.
and they were asking him about Zipcar,
Okay.
who Ford invested in.
Okay.
Car rental. Yeah. And the interviewer was saying, like, why would you do that? Isn't that in competition, to your business? And his answer was, it's happening whether we like it or not. So we may as well like it.
Okay.
And that was my evolution with Amazon. At first, we saw them as a threat, someone to protect our retailers from. And once we started selling to them, it took us a few years to transition, but we jumped all in. We learned how to, advertise on Amazon, and it took some time to figure it out, but we figured it out and haven't looked back.
Well, this reminds me of a saying I heard recently. I'm passionate about surfing, although I'm a horrible surfer. But there's a saying that says, great surfers don't make waves; they learn how to navigate them.
Yeah.
And so, when that big wave is in front of you, it's up to you to learn how to adapt to it, because you can't change the fact that it's there. I am curious. Speaking of change, when you have children, how does that impact your specific business? Has that been a source of inspiration, or has that been something that is, how has that been? Because your business obviously caters to children.
Yeah, so Kidorable was founded in 1997, and we had our first and only child in 2009. So there was a long period where we didn't have that direct inspiration. But my wife, who's in charge of product development and production, she just has a genius for understanding what
Okay.
makes kids tick, what they find fun. And we've always had lots of friends who have small children, and I'm an extreme introvert on Myers Briggs. I'm a minus 30
Okay.
on the introvert scale. Whenever I'm at a party, I love just being with the kids and wrestling with them and playing with them and having fun. So we've always had that access to children and inspiration for children. But sure, after having our own child, he's the proud model on a lot of you'll
I
see
imagine.
the website. And
Yeah.
yeah, it brings it closer in a way that's both fun and useful in coming up with ideas.
Okay.
There's lots of
Is it,
reasons to have kids, but that's one of them.
well, it certainly fits the business model. So I like the synergies there. I think most businesses don't have those synergies. I do recall one of the first Bring Your Kids to Work day, and I'm pretty sure my son thought I had the most boring job in the world. So definitely yours fit better. What's next for Kidorable? Is there a next chapter you guys are looking at, or is it just kind of continuing riding this wave right now, which, as you mentioned, since April has just been progressively, strong?
So everything that Kidorable does is fun, practical, and unique. The company is most famous for its rainwear, um, and new styles will continue to come out. But that's a fully developed,
Segment.
mature niche. Uh, my wife is starting to expand into women's fashion.
Okay.
She even has fashion silk face masks and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But both women's and children's products, and she's also moving into more environmentally friendly products and that sort of direction.
Okay. Fantastic. Being in the Pacific Northwest, we love rainwear, and we also like our environmentally friendly products. So, okay, so let's go into the quickfire round. Just a little opportunity to get to know you a little bit, see what's topical for you personally. Do you have a favorite podcast right now?
I listen to a few podcasts. By far, my favorite is Radiolab. It's
Ah,
fantastic storytelling around a theme.
yeah, no, that's I consider Radiolab to be an OG. It was
Yeah.
definitely one of the originals, and I still listen to it to this day. So, who for you is a favorite personal, or excuse me, professional inspiration? Is there somebody maybe just historically, or is there somebody right now that you really kind of look up to? Hey, this is a great kind of beacon in the northern sky.
So for what I do as being a coach, there's three coaches that I really look up to who've had a
Okay.
big influence on me. The most personal influence was a man named Herb Tanzer. He sadly passed last year at the age of 88.
Mm.
But Herb taught me, among many other things, that life is a curriculum perfectly designed for me to work out my purpose and to look at anything that's happening in my life and ask, what is it that I need to learn? Who is it that I need to be? What is the action that I need to take? And that's just been transformational in my life.
Sure.
Uh, People who are still with us and thriving, Marshall Goldsmith
Okay.
is just about the most impressive coach I know. And a man named Rand Stagen. I did his integral leadership program in 2009. And as far as not just being a fantastic coach, but having built an incredible coaching organization
Yeah.
and system and process, it's hard to beat what they do at Stagen.
Okay. That's good to know. Favorite book right now?
Favorite book? I'm a personal growth athlete. I've read thousands of books.
Right.
Early in the early last year, I read three that are like one of the dozen or so that have really made a dent in my, how I see the world.
Sure.
One is the Great Work of Your Life
Okay.
by Stephen Cope. It's how to find what you were born for and engage with the world.
Mm-hmm.
Another is called The Outward Mindset by
Okay.
the Arbinger Group. And the third one isn't a book, it's a audio course
Okay.
by Sri Kumar Rao. He's a Rao, R-A-O, he's a professor at Columbia Business School, called I think it's called the Creativity and Personal Mastery Program. And
Okay.
just all three are outstanding.
Okay. Fantastic books, especially for this past year. Early riser or burning the midnight oil?
Early riser. I usually
Okay.
wake up around 6 or a little bit before.
Okay. And last one, favorite pizza. I guess being in Chicago, you're going to have a strong opinion here.
You know, so if it's where it's from, there's a place in the northern suburbs called, where I'm from in Chicago, called Lou Malnati's.
Okay.
That would be my favorite pizza.
And is there a favorite pie from there, or a favorite pie that is your go-to?
I like to mix it up.
Okay. All right. Perfect. All right. Well, so let's get into the heart of really why I wanted to bring you on, which is the coaching side of the business. You are incredibly learned. You mentioned it already, and I came across it during my prep. You've read thousands of books. I'm curious to just kind of hear, I guess, the origin of this side of things. And obviously, you've been learning just for your own personal edification over years, which is fantastic. But where did you start getting the itch that, hey, I think there's an opportunity for me to be able to share this and help others through coaching?
So it's a story that's a long time brewing.
Okay.
And the company where I spent, the majority of my career, Kidorable, which was the vehicle for me to learn so many of these tools and frameworks. If you were to ask me 15 years ago, am I passionate about Kidorable, I would have said yes.
Right.
But if you had asked me, does it make my heart sing to sell fun, practical, unique children's accessories? That the answer would be no.
Right.
I liked it. I liked all the administrative work that I did. I liked the managerial work that I did. I even came to like the sales work that I did. But the favorite part of my week was the 10 hours or so that I spent in meetings. I love meetings because meetings are where decisions are made. It's where problems are solved. It's where people come frazzled with all the stuff that's going on in their head, and I could ask them just a few clarifying questions to calm them down and untangle the clutter that's obscuring what it is that they really need to do. It's where during employee reviews and that sort of thing, I could help people grow and become what they most want to be. I love meetings.
Okay.
And after 15 years or so, Kidorable was highly optimized. I worked from home most days for an hour or two a day. I go into the office once a week for these meetings. And I had all this excess entrepreneurial energy. I mentioned that my wife's a interior designer by training.
Yeah.
So we started a couple of new companies 3-4 years ago. A real estate staging company, a remodeling company. I got a real estate license. I mentioned my trip to China. We speak Chinese at home. I'm fluent in Chinese, and
Okay.
So we focused on the Chinese community, and I was good at it. It was okay. Those are still ongoing concerns, although they don't get much attention. But it was a single day this last year, January 31st. It was a Friday afternoon, much like any other, and I live a few blocks from Lake Michigan. I took a long walk by the lake to just clear my head.
Yep.
And halfway into the walk, it felt like there was an avalanche. I just felt like the ground was shifting underneath my feet. And I thought, like, what am I doing? I mean, it's all okay. I'm conventionally successful, but like my heart wasn't in it, in Kidorable anymore. I was born to be a coach. I love learning. I'm good at teaching. The world needs more people who are alive with passion and purpose, who have a business in life that's more easy, meaningful, and joyous. And there's entrepreneurs out there like you who are willing to pay to help figure that sort of stuff out.
Right.
This is what I've got to be doing. Now, 4 years earlier, I had an inkling. I've been toying with the idea, maybe I should be a coach. And I even presented on it to my forum during a retreat, saying maybe this is something that I should do. And I had this magical thinking idea that I'll just put it out there into the world, and then clients will magically call me and say,
Just
Jonathan,
appear.
let's work together. But I didn't take any action, and predictably nothing happened.
Yeah.
But this time was different. And I called my friend, Mike Maddock, who is the best positioning and marketing expert I know. I didn't know you at this time, but maybe I would have called you. And he helped me figure out just, who is it that I serve? What are the problems that I solve? And it has been delightful and fantastic. I said I'm a serial entrepreneur. This is my last job. It's a dream. I love everything about it.
Okay, well, I love that. And I'm going to dig a little bit further, but I want to go back to something you mentioned, which is while you're at Kidorable, what you really found yourself enjoying was the meetings, which having been in countless meetings and having talked to people in countless meetings, in fact, I'll reference an old partner of mine who said nobody has Zoom fatigue. They have crappy meeting fatigue right now, right? So I want to just talk with you a little bit about, and clearly you kind of found a cadence and a way to do it. What are some good things that we can do to run meetings that will actually be invigorating, that will be educational, that will be productive, as opposed to, people walking away from the meeting going, God, I can't believe I have to do this 3 times a week.
Yeah, so here's some best practices. So I'm certainly in the minority of saying meetings are the best part of my job. I love meetings.
You're the first guest to say it, so that's for sure.
Most people think of meetings as a distraction from their job.
Okay.
Like I wish this meeting could be over so I could get to be doing my real job. When I took over the sales department at Kidorable in 2009, we had national sales managers for a decade or so, but and they did good work, but they weren't able to get us to the level that we wanted to be. So I got rid of my last national sales manager. I took over the sales process, and during we had weekly sales meetings. I made a promise to them that this would be their most productive hour of their week.
Okay.
For 1 hour each week. And so how did I do that? Well, I started by asking them to share a success story from the previous week, something they're really proud of. And then as I was hearing this just took a couple of minutes, as I was hearing their story, I would repeat it, acknowledge it, try to make them feel good about themselves, but more importantly, tie it to core values, say why this is something that's valuable in our company, and use it as a way to teach other people. So it was not just a pat on the back and a way to acknowledge excellence, but a way for everyone to learn. The next question I would ask is, what's a frustration for the last week? What's something that seemed like it was harder than it should have been?
Right.
And once or twice out of every 10 frustration shares, it would be something that was just bad luck. There's nothing to do about it. I just let them vent, and I'd say, yeah, that sounds tough, and
Sure.
we'd move on. But most of the time, it was a problem that could be fixed, and I would fix it. And sometimes we would do it immediately, like, okay, great, yeah, we're going to change that policy. Oh, or like, yeah, here's the tool that you need to do that. And sometimes I would go, back to my office after the meeting, and I'd talk to customer service, whoever it is, and figure out how to make this process work so that they could be more efficient at their jobs. And do that 50 times over the course of a year, and it makes a tremendous difference in people's job satisfaction, in how they and how they're able to approach their work and focus on what's best. I'll share one more thing. Just
sure.
In addition to running a good meeting and having it tight and having accountability and everybody knows what they're supposed to do afterwards and all that stuff, if anyone's interested in how to run great meetings, the book to read is Death by Meeting by Pat Lencioni. He's the guy who wrote 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. It's important to have a meeting rhythm. And these rhythms save you time. You're not wasting the time in your meeting. You're saving your time outside the meeting. And they align everybody. So a daily huddle, standing meeting. We don't want this to be comfortable. We want it to be quick and over. Everyone in the team, whether it's in a department or the senior leadership team, meets every single day at the same time and says, what is it that I'm planning on working on today? What is it I'm expecting the next week? Where am I stuck? Whoever's running the meeting writes those things down on the board. And then the next day, when you have the same meeting, there's accountability, because you could ask, well, did you do what you said you were going to do yesterday?
Right.
And it's one quick conversation. You don't need 10 people asking you about what's going on, because you did it all at once.
Right.
And then in addition to the daily huddle, we had a weekly management team meeting and weekly department meetings. And during those weekly meetings, we talk about the big goals that we need to accomplish for the quarter. The best goal we've ever had came out of one of these, out of our quarterly strategic planning meeting, a quarterly goal. We would review our company core values every time. And as we would read them and affirm them, we'd ask, so how are we doing? Are we in alignment with this? And when it came to, we have the courage to do what's right for ourselves, the company, and our customers, someone raised their hand and said, well, I don't think we do. Because she was the office manager in charge of customer service, and was saying how people were afraid to make decisions, that they were bothering her all the time, interrupting her all the time, just on how to make basic decisions about customer service issues. So we came, and it wasn't because they didn't know what the right answer is. It was they didn't feel the authority, or they didn't have the confidence of being accountable for a decision. So we came up with a quarterly theme that we were no longer going to answer staff questions. What we were going to do instead is, we announced it, of course, so we didn't blindside them, but we say for this quarter, that we're going to end this quarter with everybody having the confidence and the courage to do what's right for ourselves, the company, and the customer. So the next time you come to me asking for what should we do in a particular customer service situation, I'm going to tell you, do what you think is best, and let me know how it turned out at the weekly meeting.
I like it.
So we'd have those conversations, they would share, and if it was, most of the time they had a perfectly fine answer, and we'd validate it, and they had the confidence. If they made a terrible decision, we would we'd use that as an opportunity to teach how we're going to do that next time, and thank them for the example. And by the end of the quarter, it completely changed our culture, and that all comes out of a meeting structure and a meeting rhythm.
Well, I like it. So we've adopted something similar to give people the autonomy to feel comfortable making these decisions. A, is it right for the customer, right? Does this make sense? B, is it right for the organization? And C, are you willing to be accountable for it? And I do think, especially as we rolled it out. So I like this takeaway that you have, because when we rolled it out at the beginning, a lot of times we would get questions that we would then pose, well, what do you think is the right thing to do, right? Rather than provide the answer, that was the immediate kind of follow-up. But I like the approach that you took, which is, hey, tell us how it went at the meeting, right? Don't even come to me. You have the autonomy, you have the foundation. Just tell me how it went. And if it went great. And if it didn't, well, we'll problem solve and we'll figure out. So I love that approach that you guys instituted.
I'll add another thing that came out of another of these quarterly strategic planning meetings. You can't just throw people to the wolves and say, figure it out. They need the training, they need the support to be able to know what the right decisions are. And it starts with core values and them knowing how we make decisions and what we think of as a good outcome. But it came up during one of these meetings that people felt that they just didn't know what the right thing was to do. There's a wonderful speaker. His name is John DeJulius. He speaks about.
Had him on the show.
Oh yeah. So he speaks about customer service. Yeah. And he inspired me to do this. There's only so many things that could go wrong. A customer is upset that their order shipped late. UPS lost the package. We shipped too much of something. We shipped too little of something. We didn't process their payment. There's only so many things that could happen.
Right.
That a customer service person needs to deal with. They should know the answer.
Right.
So 15 minutes at a time over the course of 6 months, I'd ask, first we spent a couple of days just brainstorming, like what's everything that's ever gone wrong? We made up a list of like 70 things.
Yeah.
And then 15 minutes at a time over 6 months. Okay, UPS lost the package. What do we tell them? And everybody would say, well, I say this. And this person would say, well, I say that. And that person would say that. And we'd look around and say, yeah, like that was the best answer, right? Yeah, great. Okay, so we'd write that down.
So that's the new answer.
Yeah, that's how we built our customer service training manual, and then we actually trained people on it.
Okay.
So there's no reason why they shouldn't be able to make a decision about all these things that happen repeatedly. And because I know our core values, they have the same decision-making tools for when something happens that's out of the blue, that's not a common occurrence.
Okay. Well, let's go back to that long walk on Lake Michigan. And you had this kind of epiphany moment, like, hey, this is my purpose. This is what I'm passionate about. Um, I think your career is a perfect example of what a lot of us go through, which is we find something and we think that we're very passionate about it. And so we pursue it and we think that it's our hearts, but over time we begin to realize that's not it. What are the techniques that you have to help people kind of do some self-assessment to determine, hey, you're probably not where you really want to be. Here are some techniques that we recommend to get you closer to just identifying, not even just trying to actually accomplish it, but what are the things that we can do to help identify our passion?
Yeah, so there's a lot of parts to that question, and I'm going to start by asking a prior question, and then I'll get to it.
Sure.
So Simon Sinek,
Yeah.
author of Start With Why, is like one of the biggest TED Talks ever. He talks about something he calls the golden circle.
Yeah.
And at the outside of the golden circle is your what. Everyone knows what you do. Any kind of poo-poos it, and it's not really important. And then this one step in is your how. And your how is your core values, your unique selling proposition, the things that make your company different. And then at the center is your why, your purpose, why your company exists. He tells a story about an Italian coffee maker. I think they're called La Marzocco or something like that.
Okay.
And I don't remember what their why is exactly, but it's something like bringing people together for great conversations or something. And
Sure.
the fact that they sell coffee makers is almost irrelevant. It's just, it's how they express their why. So if you were to work for La Marzocco, and if you share their why, and if you share their core values, it might be one of the best jobs you ever had.
Right.
You'll love the company. You'll probably stay there a long time. But if you hate coffee, if you think coffee is just bitter and disgusting, you will never be fully fulfilled selling coffee makers. Joshua, let's say for you, sweet buttery goodness is where it's at. You love cakes and cookies. Don't work for a coffee company, work for a bakery. And the level of fulfillment that you're going to have is just going to be at a whole another level. So that would be the first thing that I would ask.
Okay.
Even if you have identified your what, you're not a company. You're a human being. For a human being, our lives are the what. The what is what we do every day. If you love your what, but you're not in alignment with your how and your why, a big piece of your life is missing. You're going to get back from work every day and you're going to feel you need a drink to relax and get back into life. It's not going to be energizing. It's going to feel like something's wrong. It's going to be like ill-fitting clothes. But assuming you've done the work and there's easy exercises to figure this stuff out, what is your how? What are your core values? What is your why? What's your personal purpose in life? Then it's all about the what. And what is the what? How do you find your what? That was your question. So our purpose, our what, is the intersection of what we love.
Okay.
It's not going to be a great life purpose if you hate it. What we're good at, you might enjoy singing, but if you suck at it, don't quit your job and start busking on the street. So a combination of what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs. Your life purpose is where what you are driven to do meets what the world needs.
Right.
If you're driven to do something and no one wants it, that's not your life purpose. It might be a wonderful hobby, but it's not going to be what you devote your life to.
Sure.
And then lastly, what you could be paid for. This model that I just shared with you, what you're good at, what you love, what the world needs, what you could be paid for. When I was first exposed to it, and it's just this beautiful graphic, and I just looked at it and I stared at it for 5 minutes. I'm like, oh yeah, of course, that's it. That's life purpose. And I shared it with 2 or 3 friends. And that's all I would have done. But because this is what I do for a living, I've shared it with hundreds of people.
Right.
Because profit fuels purpose.
Right.
You could only get your message out if there's a platform, if there's a vehicle to do it. So once if we were working together and you said that, I'm conventionally successful, but I feel like just my heart's not in it anymore. Mm-hmm. I would say start with what do you love? What you love is not necessarily what your life purpose is, but it usually points a finger in the right direction.
Okay.
Are you good at that thing? Sorry, actually, let me back up a minute. So what do you love? And if the answer is I don't know, then at least I would ask you, what are you curious about?
Right.
Curiosity could lead to passion. So start with what you love. If you don't know what you love, start with what you're curious about. Then ask what you're good at. And is there any overlap between what you're good at and what you love? And let's take again the singing example. I know how much you love to sing. But you're just okay. Can you be better at it? Can you train? Can you hire a voice coach? Are there ways that you can become better at it? Next, what does the world need? This might require a reframe.
Yeah.
Early in my forum days, there was one of my forum mates, Dave Kaplan. He had a company called Resurgence Financial. And what Resurgence Financial did was they would buy bad credit card debt.
Okay.
So you've rung up all these credit card bills, and you can't pay your bills, and the credit card company, after they give up on you, and they would sell the debt for like 5 cents or something on the dollar to my friend Dave. When I first heard about it, I just thought, what a crappy business. Like, what a horrible business to be calling people who owe money. And I mean, obviously they're having problems because they can't pay their bills. But the first time I went to his office and he gave me a tour, there's this big sign on the wall that talks about Resurgence Financial's purpose, that how they're an essential cog in the financial credit system. And that because of companies like theirs, millions of people who would otherwise be viewed as uncreditworthy can now get their first credit card.
Right. Reestablish their credit.
That's awesome. What a great thing to do in the world. It makes it all worth it. So the shift, what does the world need?
Right.
And your life purpose can't all be about you. Your life purpose can't be about your own wealth, the size of your company, your health, even your spiritual prowess. If your life purpose is just focused on yourself, it's too small. You're never going to manage. You're never going to measure up. It's eventually going to become a prison. And then the last part is, what can you be paid for?
Right.
So we're entrepreneurs. That's the easy part. Start a business around it. Create your own job. And for each of these circles, how could you expand them? How could you grow one of them? How could you find a way to overlap? It took me 20 years to find my life purpose. With this introduction, hopefully this will help the people listening do it much, much faster. But it's helpful to have a guide to ask the questions and help tease those things out.
Unequivocally. I mean, I'm a big sports guy, and I do love singing. And I don't think I could get paid for either one of those. But as I look into the sports world, I mean, there's a reason that Michael Jordan had a coach. There's no coincidence that, Tom Brady and Bill Belichick are considered, a dynasty, but they work in tandem together, even though individually each of them are great, just like Phil Jackson and Michael Jordan were great. The value of a coach is tremendously important. And I think it's underknown, I think is probably a fair way to say it originally, just within business. And it's certainly underappreciated for those that do know it. I want to talk about something that I do feel is it's a dam. It's something that blocks the flow, which is we go through this process that you just laid out, which was very eloquent, very easy to kind of have your aha moment when you have the framework in front of you. But people get comfortable in routine. So what are the recommendations? Because I do feel like as I look at people, and I'm by no means a coach, but what I have enjoyed, over the years is helping peers and helping colleagues kind of explore their passion, within our company or even outside of the company. But I feel a lot of people, they just get comfortable in routine. What's the process to kind of break the mindset to say, hey, this is what you're saying, but this is what you're doing?
Yeah. So for people who are too comfortable with their routines, it's helpful to add new routines that help you break out of that. Let me give you an example. For a couple of years, I was in a marriage accountability group with a friend of mine. Every other week, we'd have a 15-minute phone call, and we just talk about how I wanted to show up in our marriages. One month I was in China, usually spend a few months a year there. And because of the time difference, it was just impossible to have the meeting, but it was still on my calendar. And my wife and I were staying at my in-laws. We'd been there for several days. We hadn't really been connecting. We were kind of sniping each other a little bit. And I started the day and I looked at my calendar and I saw that I had this marriage accountability call. Now we couldn't have it, but it was there. It was a reminder. So I went on a long walk. I like to take walks. That's where I do a lot of my thinking. I went for a long walk and I just thought about, how things were the last few days and how I wanted to show up. And I came back from the walk and we reconnected. We didn't even have the meeting. It was just words on my calendar, marriage accountability call.
Right.
So the answer to your question is to have the routine of asking yourself this question: what is it in your life that you've learned to accept,
right,
that you would have never consciously chosen? What's in your life that you learned to accept that you've never consciously chosen? We have all have these things. And maybe you do quarterly goals and ask that question.
Yep.
Maybe you do New Year's resolutions. But get in the habit. Maybe you work with a coach who asks you that question. Yeah. But get in the habit of asking that. And when there is something that you've identified, well, then decide, what is it that I need to learn? Who is it that I need to be? What's the action that I need to take? And then do that. And that's how we become who we want to be.
Well, I love that, because I do feel as someone who has been creative his whole life, I think one of the biggest obstacles that I think we all face is when you're starting with that blank piece of paper, whether you're going in an art form or anything, right? I'm putting down an outline for a new process or a new product. When it's blank, it's so hard to start, right? But one of the easiest things, and we do this by default, and I feel like we do this too often, it is the easiest pathway. It's the path of least resistance. It is to identify what we don't like. And a lot of times I feel like we do that and we chide others, right? We see something in others, but I think it's a great exercise to identify. Marina Besanova, she's a Pronexia. It's a headhunter firm. They really focus on the culture of the organization they work with. She brought up one of these tips, which was, we talk to companies about what are their pet peeves, not what do they want, because what they want are typically the, I want good soft skills and I want this tactical, but what are your pet peeves? Because if you can identify those, that will provide more clarity on what it is you actually want by removing what you don't want. And so I love that exercise you have there. It's just a fantastic takeaway.
Can I build on? Yeah. So there's only two reasons why people or organizations change. Either they're just fed up with the way things are and they're finally motivated to make it not anymore, or they have a positive vision for what they want to achieve. Both of those are equally effective in getting you to start, but it's very different on how that builds over time.
Right.
So let's start with the negative vision. I wanted to stop sucking so much. I wanted to stop hurting. Let's say that 2020 was challenging for a lot of businesses. People needed to cut costs. They needed to get profitable again. So they took action and they looked at their budgets. They looked at where they are right now and they said, I want to stop losing money. So they take all this action. So they are where they are now. They want to stop losing money. So they take all this action and it gets a little bit closer and they're able to cut some expenses and maybe things aren't so bad anymore and sales start to come back. So it doesn't hurt anymore. So now there's no more any motivation. The closer you get to your goal, the less motivation there is to keep going because it doesn't hurt as much. There's less of this creative tension.
Right.
On the other hand, if you have a positive goal, not just that you don't want to lose money, but that you want to be, you want to be profitable. You want to be able to provide for your staff and for your customers. Well, then the closer that you get to your goal, the more motivating it is because it's awesome, right. And you want to do more of it.
Right.
So, however you start, and starting with the opposite, starting with your peeves is a great way to uncover those things, but quickly flip to what is actually the thing that you do want, not just the thing that you don't want. And that's how you get sustainable change.
So we had Mark Sanborn on, and he talked about one of the primary KPIs when they talk to an organization is, are you reaching your potential? He wants to make sure that that is a legitimate KPI, because to your point, you can get to this threshold and you're like, okay, I'm comfortable, I'm happy, but are we doing as well as we absolutely could? And if the answer is no, then you have more growth in front of you, which is, so I like how doesn't matter where you start, but where you finish, you should be looking at it from the positives. So,
Yeah.
So what are some other pitfalls that you see individuals making today? We have been through a trying year. Are there, deficiencies, mental injuries, if you may, that people have encountered over this past year that, you want to bring up and you want to make people consciously aware of?
Yeah. So with all the lockdowns, with all the working from home, a lot of people feel that it's Groundhog Day. Just one day bleeds into the next. There's nothing to look forward to. I can't take my family vacation. I can't even have my beloved company meetings, everybody together to get in a room.
Sure.
And without those things to look forward to, it's easy just to get demotivated and not want to do anything.
Right.
So how do we stay motivated? How do we keep pushing ourselves to fulfill that potential if we don't have the structures and systems in place that we used to have? How do I keep motivated to keep making prospecting calls if my manager's not knocking on my door a couple times a day and asking me how it's going? So the first thing is to start building those routines. What are the foundational things in your life and your business that you want to make sure get done every day, that they keep things going, they keep things working well? For an individual, that might mean exercise, that might mean meditation or prayer, it might mean spending time with the people that you love. In a business, it means keeping as many of those rhythms as possible, whether it's meetings or sales calls or anything else, to keep driving things forward. And the easiest way to make sure that actually happens, because willpower is never enough. It's never enough to say, I'm going to try harder. And maybe for a day, possibly for a week, but certainly a month from now, you can't just keep trying harder. It's not enough. You have to make it into a routine, a ritual. And the easiest way to do that is to tie it to your natural rhythms. Every day, no matter what, you're going to wake up. Every day, no matter what, you're probably going to have breakfast, shower, shave, whatever it is. You're going to have, you're going to have meals. You're going to start work. You're going to end work. You're going to get ready for bed. These are all things that are going to happen anyway. Joshua, did you remember to brush your teeth last night?
I did, actually.
What about the night before that?
That's a question mark.
Yeah, I mean, do you have just a special love of the taste of toothpaste? Because that's pretty amazing. If you're able to remember to brush your teeth every day.
Yeah. No, it is the routine. It's the habit, right? It's the habit that helps you stay in that moment.
Yeah, and it's a habit that's tied to your natural rhythm. So the more that you can do that, there's something that you do every time before lunch, then as soon as you start to feel a little hungry, or whenever you have a lunch hour scheduled, it's a trigger to do that thing. Right. So you don't need to rely on willpower. After routines, if it's not appropriate to tie to a natural rhythm, schedule it, put it in a calendar, make an appointment with yourself. If you know that every day you need to spend a time, an hour doing your blue sky thinking, and that the best time for you to think is between 9 and 10 a.m. when you're fresh, put it in your calendar.
Right.
And if Andre or someone says, Josh, could I call you at 9:30? You say, no, I'm busy. I have an appointment.
Right.
I don't know it's with you. Make an appointment with yourself and keep it. Another thing that contributes to this idea of Groundhog Day, that just everything's the same, there's nothing to look forward to. It's a stressful time. It's stressful for many of us in our businesses. It's stressful for many of us in our politics, people worried about getting sick, or all of our routines have been disrupted. If you feel like just not doing anything at all, if you're just feeling a general malaise, 9 times out of 10, it's because there's some feeling that needs to be experienced and expressed that you're denying.
Okay.
And if you could take the time to really feel it, even for a couple of minutes, really feel it, let it be, express itself, and then let it go. And then you'll see how your motivation and your drive comes back to do the things.
Starts to rebound.
You need to do.
Yeah. Right.
Those are the main tools.
Okay. So what are some of the things, as we've talked about some of the ways to overcome some of the hurdles that we've faced. And I'm glad you brought up, because I do feel, in fact, I talked to a client yesterday. She's definitely feeling the groundhog's effect. So I look forward to being able to share this episode with her. What are some of the things that you see people that are excelling? what is it that they are really focused on, or what are, we'll call them life hacks that they've adopted that are really helping them stay at the forefront? Whether that's people you're seeing or clients you're working with, are there some things that you think are really inspirational?
Yeah. So this is the same answer, whether it's during a pandemic or what it'll be when it's all over and what it was before. If I could get a little metaphysical on you for a minute.
Sure.
So, in Buddhism, they talk about this idea of non-attachment.
Okay.
That if you want to be happy, stop being so attached to the result, and that suffering comes from wanting things that you don't have. And that's fine as far as it goes. But desire gives life meaning. It's because you want stuff that it's fun and it's worth doing. Do you play any sports, Joshua?
I love basketball.
Basketball. So basketball would be a pretty boring game if no one kept score, if you didn't care if the ball went in the basket or not, if you didn't care if you played well or not. That would be very boring.
Sure.
The point is not to not care about results. Have goals. Mm-hmm. Care about those goals and work hard at them. Love people, care about people, have desires, but there's two kinds of desire. The way to be happy in basketball, win or lose, is just try as hard as you can, try to make the ball go in the basket, but the second that it leaves your hand, that's where non-attachment kicks in. Right. That's where you stop worrying about whether it goes in or not. Now, use your senses and the power of your logical mind to say, well, I did this and the ball went in, or I did that and it didn't. Use that to improve for next time. But the second the ball leaves your hand, it's out of your hands.
Right.
Accept things the way that they are, embrace things the way that they are, have fun, and then work on the next play. There's two kinds of desire. There's desire that's grasping. That's about us and what we want. I want to grow my business. I want more money. Lust, jealousy, anger. These kind of desires, they separate us from the world. They muddy our mind. They make us think less clearly. Right. They're not energizing. They bring out the worst in us. They don't bring out the best. But desire that flows from your purpose, well, that's completely different. That brings out the best in you. It's you at your finest, at your most human. It connects you to the people around you. The people who are most successful and who are thriving in this environment and every environment are the people who have strong desires that flow from who they are, right? That aren't just for their benefit, but are for the benefit of a larger circle. And then see where they are, know where they want to go, have that positive vision, and then take action to bring their current situation towards their goals.
So it reminds me of
fun and energizing, and it's how we bend the world to what we want.
Well, it reminds me of two things. One is Gary Vee, obviously a big figure, but he preaches love the process, love the process, love the process, right? Results are going to follow it because you're going to be in love with refining the process and making it better and better. And sticking to the sports, I forget who it was, but I just saw a quote from a basketball player who said he'd rather go 0 for 30 than 0 for 9. Because to him, if he went 0 for 30, it means he didn't lose his confidence. I'm a shooter. This is what I do. This is what I love. And I'm not going to give up just because I missed my first 9 shots. I'm going to keep going. Even if I don't make a single one, I'm going to keep going because this is what I'm passionate about, which is just fantastic. I'm curious from your standpoint. I feel like this past year, one of the things, Groundhog's Day, we'll play on it a little bit, but it's noise. There's a lot of noise out in the world today. There's noise societally. We're, by the time this comes out, hopefully the political environment will be a lot much more stable. But there's a lot of unrest. There's, economic unrest, social issues, corporate, because everybody's been squeezed into a corner of their bedroom or a corner of the kitchen. What are some tips you have to kind of just filtering out the noise and not getting caught up in it? Because I do feel like people have been They've allowed themselves to be in the wrong waves, right? There's waves in every aspect of life, but they really have just been carried away by the wrong waves that really just aren't impactful on their day-to-day life.
Yeah, well, Joshua, the name of my company is Untangled Coaching, and what I do is I untangle the clutter that's in your business and personal life, and that noise that you refer to,
Yeah.
that's the clutter. So how do you untangle the how do you untangle the clutter? One of the most important things is simply being present
Okay.
and understanding what's going on in this moment. There's a story that I love. It's there's a Zen monk. He's walking through the forest. He hears a twig snap. He turns around. There's a tiger behind him. So he runs. He gets to a cliff edge. Sees there's a vine going over the cliff. He hangs onto the vine, scrambles down the cliff, evades the tiger at the last minute. It's about a 30-foot drop to the bottom. He looks down, and there's another tiger circling below. He looks up again. There's a rat chewing on the vine. He's seconds before he's going to fall. He looks to the side, and he sees some wild strawberries. He picks a wild strawberry. They were delicious. And that's the whole story. It's a story about being present.
Okay.
The tiger is not biting you. The response
Right.
to a tiger biting you is not fear, it's pain.
Right.
But until that tiger bites you, there's this moment. And this moment, most of the time, like this moment, not a minute from now, and not when you have to pay your mortgage, not when this other thing's going to happen. Like right now, embrace this moment. All life is an endless series of nows. No, 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 no.
Yeah.
And right now, you and I are talking. I hope you're having a good time. I know I
I
am.
am, definitely.
Whatever problems you had before this conversation started, they'll still be there when we're done. But right now, what does any of it matter? All it is right now. If you could embrace right now, then so much of the things that we fear, we're anxious about the future, we're resentful of the past. When the future comes, it'll be now.
Yeah.
And when you're being resentful, now you're having a memory of something that happened in the past. Just embrace the way things are right now. And so much of it falls away. The other thing I would add is to think of life as a conversation. You're constantly being invited, requested to do things, to not do things. And to the extent that we respond to this conversation of life is a measure of our aliveness. So you mentioned the politics, on election day. It was a long night. We didn't really know what the answer was.
Yeah.
And I read the newspaper in the morning, and my first response was like, I cannot believe half the country thinks this way. And at first I was a little agitated because I wanted my side to win decisively, but it didn't. And this all happened in the space of about a minute. My next thought was, wow, it sounds like I really have a lot of work to do. My work's cut out for me, trying to convince these people to think more like me. And then a few seconds after that, I thought, nah, that's not my fight.
Right.
that's not my thing. And I let it go. And
Yeah.
it hasn't bothered me since. It's still happening. It's still
Yeah.
happening now, months after the election. But I decided how I was going to respond to that conversation.
Well, the two things I would say to that are A, did your life change the night before to the morning after? And the answer is
Yeah.
no. And obviously with politics, it's a much longer, life cycle. But B, I like that you evaluated. I, I hear choose your moments. Choose the moment that you want to impact your life, because it is your life and you only have so many moments in life. Are you going to waste moments on things that, perhaps are consequential, but are really not in your space to really be to be committing so much of your energy and so
Yeah.
much of your time too?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I want to ask you, we've talked about a lot. Is there anything we haven't covered that you think is important to share with people today?
Just to keep asking yourself that question. What is it in your life that you've learned to accept that you would have never consciously chosen?
Right.
What are you ready to take action? And if so, what is it that you really want? Notice the gap
Yeah.
between where you are right now and what you want, what's missing. Take an action that bridges that gap. Do that thing. That's how we turn our circumstances into our achieved goals. People listen to podcasts like this one to be inspired, to get answers to questions that are going to improve their business, that are going to help them make their business more successful. And that's really important. It's impossible, or at least very difficult, to have a successful business without that.
Right.
But having a successful business does not mean having a successful life. The
Yeah.
answers, the solutions to how to make your life and business more easy, meaningful, and joyous are out there, and the tools are available. And that's what I like to help people with.
Well, we're definitely going to link to them. So I appreciate you taking the time today to share these concepts and these ideas, because I think that there's a lot of takeaways we can have personally that can have a very meaningful impact professionally as well. So Jonathan, I want to thank you for coming on Ask an Expert. I really appreciate your time, and I look forward to having you back again in the future.
I enjoyed it. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to share my message.
Have a good one.
This wraps another great Ask an Expert video. I hope you enjoyed Jonathan's session. A lot of great insights for personal and professional growth. If you liked it as much as I did, hit the like button down below. Make sure to put a comment if you have a question or you just want to add something. And make sure to also subscribe. That way you're instantly notified when we drop our next Ask an Expert video. Stay safe and keep propelling your business forward.